News Central ní ẹ̀ ń wò.
And in the first Monday in the month of July, and of course, first Monday in the second half of 2023, we say good morning to our viewers across Africa and beyond. Welcome to Breakfast Central on News Central Television. Thank you so much for joining us and for choosing to start the week with us. I am Osaogie Ogbon.
And I am Olive Emodi. For the next 2 hours, we take you through entertainment, news, sports, and some of the biggest political stories around the continent. But that's not all. We also have breakfast headlines, and Blessings Mosugu is on standby for that. Good morning, Blessings.
Good morning, Olive. Looking bright and beautiful this morning. I mean, I can't say same for Saudi, but Olive, you look stunning.
And the beef continues. One day I look forward to the day we start off the show with peace and unity between the both of you. But the beef.
Morning, Blessings Mosugu.
Yes, that
Morning,
beef is not what we're
Osaogie.
talking about this morning. Let's share with you what our conversations this morning will be via our top stories.
As this morning, Kenya road crash, the death toll rises with 41 bodies identified.
That's quite an unfortunate story. But here in Nigeria, the G5 governors, we have reports that Nigeria's SGF plots defection, and we're going to talk about that shortly.
Of course, a viral video that, of course, came out a couple of days ago. Edo State residents demand investigation.
And we head over from Edo State to Sudan, where we'll talk about the fierce fighting that still is continuing and lives being lost.
In sports, Zambia record clean sweep as they advance to Olympic qualifiers. These and more on Breakfast Central.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the country. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa first.
You wake up to a lot of stories about Africa.
But this is where you get the story straight.
Where we explore different angles because we understand our stories.
There's that passion when it's your perspective and not a distant perception.
I know you hear it a lot, but it's true. Nobody can tell your story better than you.
That's what we do.
All day, every day,
On News Central TV.
are African stories by Africans for Africans.
A beautiful morning to you wherever you're watching us from across the African continent. This is Breakfast Headlines with me, Blessings Osugu. Now let's start in West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu is back in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, after spending a few days in Lagos for the Saleh holidays. Before departing the presidential wing of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, Tinubu, in the company of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, took the salute of the Nigerian Army Parade, who mounted a guard of honor. Now, during his 5-day stay in Lagos, the president paid a courtesy visit to the paramount rulers of Ijebu, Egba, and Eko. Let's also tell you that Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has debunked a report by the European Union's Electoral Observer Mission, EOM, on the 2023 general elections, describing it as a product of a poorly done desk job, relied heavily on few persons. The president, through its special advisor to the president on special duties, communications and strategy, Dele Alake, says he has many reasons to believe the jaundiced report, based on the views of fewer than 50 observers, was to merely sustain the same premature denunciatory stance. Nigerian Navy has described the report of an alleged absurdity in Admiralty University of Nigeria, Adun Ibusa Delta, as misleading and the handiwork of mischief makers. Naval spokesman Commodore Ayo Vogan, who debunked the report in a statement on Sunday in Abuja, faulted most of the issues raised in the report. Now, in Edo State, where residents have called for the investigation and probe of some policemen seen in a viral video running over a handcuffed suspect with their vehicle. The incident, which happened in the Ekpoma area of the state, has generated indignation by citizens, despite the police saying the personnel involved have been arrested. Some residents in the state, while commending Nigeria's Inspector General of Police for the swift reaction to the incident, however, urged the police to ensure that the victim gets justice.
Justice now is bad because police brutality in this town. So in some community, nobody does that. You understand? So you don't mean because you have police gun, you are with a police uniform, you can be oppressing civilian. It's bad. In Western world, developed country, things are not done in that way. You understand? You are under arrest. Then you take the person to station. But in Nigeria here, in town here, Buma here, some police will come to your house, you are under arrest, maybe you want to follow them in a very peaceful way, they will still be beating you, be slapping that person. It's bad. So we are pleasing the government. They should come and interfere in this matter.
It's a good one for the IGO Inspector General of Police. Since he came out it's a good start for him to have intervened speedily in issues that happened. And I believe since it is something that persons are interested in, it should be done properly. What we are expecting is for the government to do the needful, not what they are publishing on social media. Let us see here that justice has prevailed.
The CP condemned their actions and described it as barbaric, inhuman, and unprofessional. He therefore called on the good people of Edo State, the general public, to remain calm and go about their businesses. As we speak, they've been identified, they've been arrested and brought to State Police Headquarters, Benin, where they are undergoing investigation in the State Criminal Investigation Department.
Now to more stories. A ghastly road accident in Umunya, Odumodu Junction in Oyi local government area, Anambra State on Saturday left no fewer than 8 passengers dead. The accident involved 2 trailer trucks, 1 Jetta Sienna bus and 1 black Toyota car, all of which were badly damaged in the accident, which was said to have occurred as a result of overspeeding. A motorcycle rider who identified himself as Kenechukwu, who claimed to be an eyewitness, said one of the trucks involved lost its brake while traveling from Onitsha to Enugu. South Africa's Zulu king, Misuzulu Zulu, the head of the country's most influential traditional monarchy, has undergone medical examinations following the sudden death of a close advisor. Now, this comes amid suspicion that he was poisoned. A spokesman, Prince Africa Zulu, told journalists that the king, who was visiting neighboring Eswatini, underwent precautionary and thorough medical exams in the context of COVID and after the sudden death of his close advisor, Douglas Daba. In East Africa now, where leaders allied to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party have threatened to impeach President William Ruto. The leaders have launched sustained attacks against the president and his administration, saying that they cannot solve the country's problems and have failed to address the needs of the common ordinary citizen. Saboti MP Caleb Amisi explained that it is very easy to remove Ruto from office because he narrowly won the elections, and people who voted for him have frowned upon his leadership. That's what we have for you on the news at this hour. It's time to Olive and Osagie to continue Breakfast Central.
Thank you very much, Blessings, for bringing us the update with the news. It's very sad to see the deaths, 8 lives claimed in the car crash. It was a trailer from Onitsha to Enugu, according to the reports. And we're highlighting this because, unfortunately, lives have been lost. According to the news, it reports that this was as a result of overspeeding of the trucks. If you look at the picture, it's a gory image. What's happening there? It's kind of similar to one of our top stories today, where we're talking about the unfortunate loss of lives that have been caused again by overspeeding in Kenya and the car crash in West Kenya.
I mean, I think this is just a reminder to people who drive on a daily to slow down. I mean, you will get to your destination, right? You don't have to rush. The impact probably could have been less if the cars involved were not speeding that much. But it's really sad to see that is happening. I think precautionary measures should be put in place, or maybe there should be a parameter to check the speed limit of people driving.
Well,
I mean, road accidents happen all around the world, you know. I don't know if there are speed limits on Nigeria's expressways.
Well, there are, but people just don't observe them.
Yeah, but I mean, so we're going to have to look closely at exactly where that accident took place. You know, I know if there's a speed limit of 100 kilometers per hour, 150 kilometers per hour, and stuff like that. There's a lot of other factors that, you know, have come into creating these accidents across the continent. Bad roads are one of them. Vehicles that, of course, aren't properly checked. But I feel, you know, like it would take a lot of work, you know, for us to get to ourselves to a state where we reduce road traffic accidents to its barest minimum.
I mean, yeah, all around the continent as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Blessings, for joining us with the Breakfast Headlines. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's share with you what's happening on the front pages of the newspapers this morning.
And we will start in Uganda this morning and share with you what's on the Daily Monitor. It says there, Uganda safe despite UK terror alert. And that's by the Ugandan government this morning. Also, it says here, global cartel hacks commercial banks, demands 3.6 billion shillings. Interesting. A picture on your screen there, born to serve. Kabale Diocese ordains 4 priests. Congratulations to them. And of course, a writer to the story, the first story I took this morning, says, look out, in a travel advisory posted on its website, the United Kingdom government noted that the terrorists are very likely to try to carry out attacks in Uganda, but the army remains confident the country is in safe hands. If you remember, Uganda, of course, is still mourning those 42 kids that lost their lives, to terror attacks. 41, I believe, kids that lost their lives after they were murdered. And we hope that the Ugandan government is able to bring those perpetrators to book. One or two other stories this morning we can share here. It says Museveni's letter over Bukedea by-election stares Teso. And the final story in relationships, on a journey to end stigma against vitiligo. That's a very interesting conversation, yes.
I think it was June 16th, that was World Vitiligo Day.
Yeah.
We'll come back to talk more about some of the stories that have made it to the front pages of the newspaper, but we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, more on the top stories. Stay with us.
Sometimes, it's not just the distance we travel, gaps we close. It's not the things we buy. It's the memories we create. Sometimes it's beyond the places we go. It's the connections we make. Not just the things we taste. It's the taste of things to come. And it's never a question of if, but when. Because life is always just a bit better with American Express. Introducing the Access Bank American Express Gold Card and the Metal Platinum Card, now available through Access Bank.
Unatazama runinga ya New Central.
Right, still on the front pages of the newspapers, we head to East Africa where we look at the Daily Nation in Kenya. The big story says jobs. Passport delays a nightmare for many Kenyans seeking to travel out of the country. That's not something that's unfamiliar in other parts of the terrain. If you look at Nigeria as well, passport delay is also a problem that a lot of Nigerians have experienced. But here it says youth exodus, greener pastures, unemployment and the tough living conditions have driven many young people to the edge and they now want out. The long winding queues at the passport centers across the country as well as the airport are testament to this. The youth are flying out to pursue their dreams abroad and the government is prodding them on. See pages 6 and 7. You can see the passport processing crisis here. There's currently a backlog of at least 70,000 passports and the immigration department can only process 700 passports a day. So imagine how long it will take them to catch up with this backlog. They're talking about steep increase, passports processed and increased, issued by 55.9% in 2022. There's so many other yardsticks that have been used to measure why this is actually a problem. And I hope that William Ruto is looking at it. And I wonder what he's doing about it. I wonder if they would one day come up with a law that seeks to prevent young people from traveling out of Kenya, from relocating, like they tried to do here in Nigeria, to maybe ensure that they retain that force, that strength within Kenya. And we're still here on the front page. Inside Ruto plan to claw into Raila's Nyanza turf. Londiani accident, traders defy order to vacate roadside market on page 2. And final story, last moments of Kenyan woman who was murdered alongside her Nigerian lover. That's not good. But that's all that we can take this morning on the front page of the Daily Nation. Let's go to our next story.
All right, and now let's move to Nigeria and see what we can find here. It says, revealed Tinubu's move against terrorism. I would like to know what exactly that is. It says a comprehensive onslaught against terrorists and bandits begin. Security architecture set for review. Rules of engagement to be determined by the nature of security threat. More shake-up imminent in security services. President vows to stop crude oil theft. Economic policies to reflect contemporary realities and scores of captives released as farmers return to their farms in Northwest. Consultations in political, economic and security affairs continue. Also on the Vanguard, Presidency rejects EU's report on 2023 general elections. A very damning report. The EU election observance team, I believe, put out a few days ago, basically, condemning, majority of, the elections that took place in Nigeria, and of course saying that the nomination of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu to be INEC chairman was one of the reasons that the elections turned out that way. It also spoke about how a lot of the malpractices and all the issues with the electoral process were glaring. It wasn't even stuff that could be hidden. And broke down a couple of other things that they observed. I'll just quickly share some of them that they noted. It said that the weak points include a lack of INEC's independent structure structures and capacities to enforce sanctions on electoral offenses and breaches of campaign finance rules. And these are things that we had spoken about over and over and over, concerning the electoral process. That till today when we speak, there's still nobody who has been accused or prosecuted or, at least made to respond to the allegations of electoral malpractice. And I'm talking about INEC ad hoc staff and people around the whole electoral process. Not one person, not even those who are accused of or who were seen to be snatching ballot boxes or disrupting the electoral process with violence. Not one person has been arrested or, it's been, publicly or at least being prosecuted by Nigeria's electoral judicial system. It also spoke about INEC's a lack of transparency on the part of INEC, particularly regarding INEC's failure to transmit the presidential poll results in the viewing portal in real time, and a few other things that I won't have time to go into it. But those are some of the things that were mentioned in the report. Also on the Vanguard this morning, anxiety as federal government resumes work on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway today. Fuel subsidy made e-vehicles unattractive in Nigeria, says the World Bank. I'm not sure why or what that is. Fuel subsidy removal, forex reforms, investors raking 5.3 trillion naira in the first half of 2023. I'm just going to squeeze in one more story and then we could go to another newspaper this morning. It says 9 illegal refineries with 1 million barrels per day production capacity uncovered in Bayelsa. Good morning, Bayelsa. And those are the stories that we can share this time on the Vanguard newspapers. Let's go to Daily Trust, still here in Nigeria.
All right, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, the big story is, of course, talking about the race for Senate leaders. APC's Bamidele in pole position as Tambuwal Aliero battle in PDP. Northern senators insist on producing House leader. Wike plots against ex-Sokoto governor. We will resist imposition by ruling party, according to opposition parties. Of course, the information about how Senator Ali Ndume and the others are still interested in majority and minority leadership positions. Here, baby found alive on mom's back 24 hours after bandits shot her dead. FAAC disbursement to hit record 1 trillion naira following FX unification. Presidency, Labour Party bicker over EU's report on 2023 elections, which is our top story in the second hour. Military pencils down over 50 names for promotions as generals bow out today. Fiscal collapse would have brought more hardship than subsidy removal, according to Professor Ojowu. We also have here Nigerian pilgrimage's death toll hits 13 as 41,632 fall sick in Saudi Arabia. Final story, Sokoto blasphemy killing. We cannot continue like this. Indeed, we cannot continue like this. There has to be punitive measures and something must be done to let people know that they cannot take the law into their hands and continue with religious killing. But when will the government give us an answer and start to ensure that they put measures to stop this? Is a question we'll keep asking. This is still Breakfast Central on News Central Television. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking through our top stories and we urge you to join us.
Being in PDP, being in APC, to what end? I have gotten a fair share of life. I'm not looking for anything desperately. And I'm not watching brief for Tinubu. If Tinubu does anything wrong tomorrow, I'll be the first to come out. I'll bear my mind openly. My needs are very little. This country is bigger than all of us. It's bigger than all political parties. It's bigger than Ashwaju himself. He's only first among equals. Blessed of God to be in that position. Does not make him a dictator over us. If he's not doing the right thing, I fought Buhari now. I came out with early people that were saying this man will wreck this boat. I said it openly. When he was hidden somewhere in an hospital, I disclosed the hospital in UK, in West End. I didn't hide. That was the time they hit me with something, a gun in my on my neck during the election. My sister, not all of us will be cowards.
Begin our top stories this morning in East Africa and in Uganda, to be specific, where we have news that the new financial year, which has started on the 1st of July 2023, has then made us see that 6 bills have been assented to by President Museveni, and these are expected to play a role in the taxman's revenue mobilization drive. One of the bills is this: starting this financial year, any motorist found liable for speeding will be met with a 2 million shillings fine, up from 200,000 shillings as per the Traffic and Road Safety Amendment Act 2023. The Executive Director of Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, OSIATINI, Ms. Jane Nalunga, and Kashari South lawmaker Nathan Itungo says that a 2 million shillings fine is very unrealistic, as impunity and corruption would frustrate the law.
However, according to Budama West lawmaker Emmanuel Otala, this law should have come earlier because no human life can be replaced once lost. Adding, of course, that the punishments are deterrent enough to make people begin observing the speed limits. Now, of course, here are some of the bills that have been signed into law. It's the Lotteries and Gaming Amendment Bill 2023, Traffic and Road Safety Act 1998 amendment, I beg your pardon, number 2, Bill 2023, Value Added Tax Amendment Bill 2023, and of course, a conversion on Mutual Administrative Assistance in Tax Matters Bill 2023. Of course, that is a very, very interesting development there, seeing the 2 million shillings fine, of course, for speeding in Uganda. Approximately, of course, if you convert that to United States dollars, about 550 on the average US dollars fine for speeding, which I think arguably is quite a lot. I don't think anybody would argue with you.
200,000. First of all, it's not even 100% increase. It's a lot. If you're going to be making adjustments to a bill, I think that it should be gradual. So you move up from 200,000 shillings to 2 million shillings. It's quite, in some way, reminds me of, I think it will be Zimbabwe, where they moved up their nomination bills from 1,000 US dollars, or increase to 20,000 US dollars.
But I think they are trying to, so here's the thing, with trying to fight road traffic accidents, it's not just about fines. I think there's also other factors. Good roads, and the government needs to ensure that the roads are, safe for driving. You also ensure that it has road traffic signs, here and there to also advise.
But the problem is, even the road traffic signs, not a lot of people even know what is road traffic signs, because many people learned how to drive at home. They didn't really learn how to drive in the driving school where they were taught a number of these things. So it's a combination
of these things,
yes,
right?
And in addition to that, I also think the kind of officials, the road traffic officials in Nigeria, for example, what we've seen a number of times over and over again would be road traffic officials who seemed to be there, not necessarily because they want to, to enforce the traffic laws. Some of them are even very unaware of the traffic laws themselves. They don't understand that. They would tell you readily, some would tell you readily, to drop your vehicle. They will impound your vehicle because they can't find your driver's license, whereas the law doesn't actually tell you that. It gives you a 24-hour window to say that if I can't provide this, I can go home and bring it back. I can go home and bring back my driver's license. So I think it's just also having officials that are enthusiastic about the job, that are well paid, and are not there to enforce.
So there's that, right? And like I said, it's a whole spectrum of things that need to come into play if you're going to reduce it. Africa has the highest statistics with road traffic accidents and mortality from road traffic accidents. I think it's about 26 per every 100,000. The world average is 18. In Europe, it's 9. That's the figure. So we're about 3 times the figures compared to what it is in Europe. And these are, mostly from overspeeding. If you look at the statistics, the things that cause the most deaths from road traffic accidents, or the major cause of road traffic accidents across the continent: overspeeding, distracted driving, drunk driving, and some of all of that. I don't think that they will add bad roads to it, but I think it should also be added.
Barely.
But yes, overspeeding causes, I think, about 32% of road traffic accidents across the continent, which of course is something that must be checkmated. Do people then understand that being on the express doesn't mean that you should be driving 200 kilometers per hour? Are there laws concerning the But I mean, even in those moments when you say a person is overspeeding, how do you checkmate them?
Exactly, because in the UK, for example, you're driving too fast, immediately there's a camera somewhere that takes pictures of you.
But we don't have that infrastructure across the continent.
It will be a challenge to regulate that.
But these are some of the things that I think every country across the continent must do if they want to checkmate road traffic accidents and reduce them to its barest minimum. Drunk driving, of course, how many times across Nigeria have you seen a drunk test on an offender? Doesn't even happen.
Because some of them are even.
I mean, yeah, so there is that. But the thing is, once again, the infrastructure.
Yeah,
we don't have.
We don't know how we can't check.
We can't check.
A breath test.
What are they going to just smell your breath? That's the most that we can do.
That'd be weird.
All right. From one country signing in new driving laws to another, recovering from a road crash that claimed over 53 lives. A total of 41 of the 53 bodies of victims of the Londiani Junction traffic accident kept at the Jericho County Hospital mortuary have been identified. The county executive committee member in charge of Heath's docket, Brenda B., expressed confidence that the remaining 11, badly mutilated bodies would also be identified by their grieving families.
Brenda B. also called on anyone with useful information to reach out to Londiani Hospital, where body identification and contact tracing efforts are currently on the way. Now, to bring us more update on this ugly crash in Kenya is Daniel Ominde Okoth. He's the lead editor, Africa Blogging. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show this morning.
All right, very ugly incident we've seen here happening in Western Kenya. Can you give us further details into how this happened? We've been talking about unfortunate accidents that have been caused in different parts of the continent as a result of overspeeding. Is this the case here as well?
Yeah, so it's very difficult at this point to determine at what speed the vehicle that caused the crash was traveling at, but it's highly suspected that the vehicle was overspeeding. But there's also an element of crowding in the area that the vehicle was at when it lost control. So this was a trailer that was traveling from Mombasa, going at the Kenyan coast, going all the way to Rwanda. It was transporting cement. So the trailer at the back of the lorry snapped from its trailer bed and fell onto the road. And in that process, because the vehicle was at a considerable speed, it ramaged into other vehicles that were stationary. Some of these were public service vehicles. Others were private vehicles that were waiting with the passengers just had gotten out to buy stuff or buy commodities from that informal market that I was speaking about at the Londiani Junction. And then also the traders who run their business there, selling their wares. It's a very the Londiani Junction is a very busy spot in the highway that connects Nairobi to the Western Kenya. Most people traveling to the counties of Western Kenya, of Kericho, Kakamega, Kisumu, Siaya, Busia, from Nairobi, they pass through this particular joint, and especially over the weekends and a month and weekend to be specific, it's very busy with people going home to see their families, up country, visit their relatives, people going for weddings and funerals and things like that up country. So that's why it's an accident that took place in a very busy area, and that's why we are seeing such heavy death toll from that particular crash.
That's really, really sad. We're going to talk about infrastructure in a bit, but I want you to also speak on something. I just, found now that, in 2021, 20,625 people were involved in road crashes in Kenya. 4,579 died. 10,000 got seriously injured, and of course, 5,900 were slightly injured. Of course, those figures increased in 2022. So let's talk about, infrastructure and what must be done in Kenya in particular, if there's any plans of reducing the mortality and the frequency of road traffic accidents.
Well, there have been efforts that have been put in place by the government, especially the government agency that is in charge of road safety, the National Transport and Safety Authority. And some of these efforts that they've put in place have usually been very reactionary as a result of previous crashes that we've had, where a lot of lives have been lost, and there's been quite a huge uproar, and people saying we don't need to be losing people like this. But every other day on the road, we have people dying from accident caused by border operators. These are the motorcycle taxis. We have people dying from matatu accident or accidents caused by PSVs. Sometimes the numbers are not as huge as this one. They don't create such international interest, But any life lost on the road is one too many. There's a family that's been left grieving. There are people who've lost their friends. There's somebody who's been, meaningfully engaged in creating income and revenue for this country who's lost their lives. The government initially, is part of this claim, part of the blame game was going in terms of the government, in terms of road signages, poor conditions of the roads with potholes and things like that. But we've also seen sustained efforts by the government to try and improve the state of our infrastructure across the country. Right now, we have like really, really very, very good roads. But the problem is also with having very good roads is that even drivers would usually drive, very slowly, very carefully when the roads are not in top-notch condition, now have an excuse to speed because the roads are, sort of in perfect condition. And in some areas, like just about 30 or so kilometers where this particular accident happened is another spot that's usually has been designated as a black spot. It's called the Sachangwan area. And so many people, hundreds of lives had been lost in that particular spot. So it took the government to, after a very serious accident in 2017, in the December of 2017, December 12th to be specific, to bring in place or to put in place a dual carriageway in this place so that traffic, oncoming traffic and traffic going the other direction do not meet. And that is one of the reasons behind a reduction of traffic accidents across that particular area. We've also seen sustained efforts when we have traffic accidents, especially the ones that involved a vehicle carrying cross-border goods, especially petroleum. There used to be cases where when a petroleum tanker turns down, people rush there with jerry cans to siphon fuel. Again, tragedy has happened. People have lost their lives when those tankers blew up because, somebody had a cigarette lit around the vicinity and so many people died in such incidences. Then, of course, the government, as usual, they come up with reactionary measures. Like even for this particular accident, the government has said they want to move that market away from there, from that crowded section of the road into a place where people can move in with good parking space and so on and so forth. But it's not that these people are not there because they're in existence of the market. They are there because of the behavior of people who buy their wares from them, who are the motorists. The vehicles that come and stop at that particular place is where the reason why they are dangerously trading, besides the road. And this is not an isolated incident. From the story that you read, like just a day after this very devastating accident, they are back at the same spot. They are still selling their wares there. Of course, they are aware of the danger that they are putting themselves, that are exposing themselves to. But when you speak to them, they tell you, I have to weigh, between, being careful, going somewhere else where I feel like I'm safer, and being at a place where I know when I'm here, I'm actually going to make a living for my family. So we have to strike a balance between one, creating a safe space for these traders to be able to go about their businesses selling their wares, but also educating our motorists, educating the people who buy from them that, you can still go maybe, 500 or a kilometer, away from the road to safely buy, products from these sellers.
So many things you've mentioned, Daniel, really, in terms of how people respond in the face of crisis when an accident has occurred. And there are projections that by 2030, we would have 13 million deaths worldwide caused by road crashes if urgent intervention isn't being done. Thank you for highlighting this point. And I hope that the government of Kenya is paying attention and will do the needful to ensure that Kenya's statistics to that contribution is greatly reduced. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Daniel. From the east, let's move to the west of the continent, where in Nigeria, residents of Edo State, southern Nigeria, have called for investigation and probe of some policemen seen in a viral video running over a handcuffed suspect with their vehicle. The incident, which happened in Ekpoma area of the state, has generated nationwide condemnation by citizens. Despite the police saying the personnel involved have been arrested, we of course must strongly warn the video you're about to see can be disturbing.
It's injustice now. It's bad because police brutality in this town. So in some community, nobody does that. You understand? So you don't mean because you have police gun, you are with a police uniform, you can be oppressing civilian. It's bad. In Western world, developed country, things are not done in that way. You understand? You are under arrest. Then take the person to station. But in Nigeria here, in town here, Buma here, some police will come to your house. You are under arrest. Maybe you want to follow them in a very peaceful way. They will still be beating you, be slapping that person. It's bad. So we are pleasing the government. They should come and interfere in this matter.
It's a good one for the IGO Inspector General of Police. Since he came out it's a good start for him to have intervened speedily in issues that happened. And I believe since it is something that persons are interested in, it should be done properly. What we are expecting is for the government to do the needful, not what they are publishing on social media. Let us see here that justice has prevailed.
The CP condemned their actions and described it as barbaric, inhuman, and unprofessional. He therefore called on the good people of Edo State, the general public, to remain calm and go about their businesses. As we speak, they've been identified, they've been arrested and brought to State Police Headquarters, Benin, where they are undergoing investigation in the State Criminal Investigation Department.
Very pathetic situation indeed. Now, some residents in the state were commending Nigeria's Inspector General of Police for the swift reaction to the incidents. However, urged the police to ensure that the victim gets justice. Right, there have been several reactions to this, of course. I did see a report by, I'm going to quote exactly, it was said that ASP Magdalene Osayonde reported at Ekpoma Divisional Police Headquarters, Ekpoma, Edo State, that while on routine stop and search duty with a team of 6 policemen along Ihumudumu Road, Ekpoma, Edo State, they intercepted the driver of an unregistered Lexus vehicle and demanded the particulars. They then says along the line he became aggressive, refused to oblige the request of the police operatives, but rather attacked them, inflicted injuries on them, and destroyed the police vehicle. Now, however, he was arrested, handcuffed, and identified as one Success Ehimari before the incident that is currently trending in social media occurred. So this is the explanation of what happened pre this video, right? Regardless of it, we do not think that it is enough. I mean, there were a number of them to one man. How is one man able to inflict bodily harm on 6 policemen, destroy the police vehicle, and then we get to this? I don't know how I feel about that explanation of incidents that happened prior to that. It feels like medicine after death. And if this was not captured on camera, we probably would never have known about it.
Yeah, I mean, there is always expected that there will be some explanation. The police would always, figure out, a thing to say. And of course I would, even if it's 1%, give them benefit of doubt, that these things, didn't. I mean, there definitely was something happening in the build-up to what we're seeing on screen currently. But, the thing that I would always point out is, and that's why when it was a new IG of police, and he was making those statements, and, barking orders, we, of course, last week had to remind him, I had to remind him that, no matter how much of these new orders you bark, to your police officers, and of course to the current administration, if there's no proper police reforms, then you are wasting our time, wasting your time, and the time of Nigerians generally. If we do not get to understand the level of reforms that are needed in the entire police force, because the rot in the Nigerian police force is pathetic.
It is.
And so if you do not understand the level of reforms that are needed, then we're wasting our time. The video you're seeing there's a Toyota Sienna. That's not a police vehicle. That's not an official police anywhere in the world.
Why was the policeman trying to hurry away? Where was he driving to?
I mean, so that really is just, showing the recklessness, and of course the disrespect for the rule of law, disrespect for the rights of Nigerian citizens that you see in the police. But I'm just breaking it down bit by bit. That first of all, what is the police doing a policeman doing in a Sienna? That's not an official police vehicle. And so it basically tells you that the Edo State Police don't even have vehicles with which they should carry out their routine stop and search.
Well, maybe like they claim the vehicle was destroyed by the victim in this video before this video was filmed, before they got to this extent. But the question is, regardless of what happened, him driving papers, regardless of what it was, it's not enough to respond in this manner.
That is the police statement. The thing, you know, and I remember a couple of months ago I did say this, that one of the reasons we may never see policemen behave better is because over time, policemen across Nigeria have not been punished.
Well,
and this is why I would say so. Because if you see what happened in Ajah, if you remember the barrister who was killed,
and even though young man was killed before.
Thank you. And a couple of months later, you see something similar, and then you saw the video of the policeman using sticks or a baton to beat a Okada rider.
Yeah.
He was bleeding all over. These were policemen who are meant to be protecting citizens that weren't in danger. You know, if we see these things happen over and over and over, what it tells me is that every time the police say that this person has been arrested and is being prosecuted, it's a lie. Because if I am a policeman, I understand that if I do this thing to the Nigerian citizen, I will be fired, I will be arrested, I will be prosecuted, and I will be charged with whatever, battery, murder. Then I understand that I will not, I mean, it reduces the amount of the time that it would occur, basically. But because we never get to see that these things change, there's no change in the attitude of Nigerian police. There's no change in in the professionalism of the Nigerian police force and their men across the country. So it tells me that these guys really do not get punished. When they put out these statements and take those pictures of them being court-martialed or whatever, it's all just a dance for the media.
Yes,
and we never. I mean, ask anybody. Ask walk across the street and ask anybody if they know one police officer who, maybe except the guys who shot a guy who was playing football, just before the NSAS protest. If they know one police officer who has been named by the police and arrested for a crime, and we are sure that they are really in jail.
Time, like you've mentioned, it will take us a long time to get to the point where the citizens actually trust that when the police step out of line, they'll be made to face the law. Now, the reports we have on this story is that the policemen arrested and are currently at the state CID.
Right.
Yes, that's the report.
That is their report, but nobody believes it.
If you ask a number of Nigerians, they would express their displeasure at how matters involving the Nigerian police is being handled and how they do not feel like these men are made to take responsibility. They are not held to account for their wrongful actions. And it's not just in Nigeria. I mean, we just finished talking briefly about the one that's, okay, we haven't talked about it yet, but we will. Talking about the ones happened, that's cost us.
Police across the world feel like a cult. It feels like a cult group. Yeah, exactly. Like the one going on in France. In every part of the world, it almost feels like they're a cult group. But in Nigeria, it's just more disrespectful and it's disgusting.
Very disrespectful. We will go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at sports. Let's hear what's happening in the sporting world here on Breakfast Central.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it, people who know that news is more than just it's our stories, because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Welcome back. You're still watching Breakfast Central. Time to take you to the world of sport. The 2023 Diamond League Athletics Series reached its halfway in Stockholm, Sweden, where some of the world's best and brightest track and field talent had to navigate some inclement weather. South Africa's Akani Simbine sprinted to back-to-back Diamond League titles in the men's 100 meters, while the first half of the women's 200 meters race was a tussle between Asher Smith and Miriam athletes, while Ivorian athletes Mari Josetalu was in the middle lanes. We've got world champion and world record holder Toby Amuson. She showed class to win the 100 meters hurdles in the time of 12.52 seconds, despite the wet conditions on track. Her compatriot, Esther Brume, put up a respectable outing in the women's long jump, finishing fifth, leaping a distance of 6.51 meters. Kenya's Beatrice Chebet produced a season's best of 14 minutes 36.52 to dominate the women's 5,000 meters in her only second race over the distance this year. While in the women's 1,500 meters, Frenwenyi Hailu from Ethiopia had an Ethiopian 1-2-3 winning the middle distance event in the time of 4 hours, 02 minutes, 31 seconds. Moving away from that, women are taking center stage in sport, and it is in the world of rugby sevens, where the Zambia women's rugby sevens have qualified for the final round of Paris 2024 Olympic qualifiers. Now, this follows a 31-5 win bottom of the bottom table. That's Egypt, the Egypt women's sevens. The win has also cemented Zambia's first position on the log and subsequently qualified for the finals of the ongoing Paris pre-Olympic qualifiers. All hail the women of Zambia. Let's still stay on women matters, but now to the world of basketball and on the Nigerian scene, where there is trouble in the air. The Nigerian Basketball Federation's unexpected decision to hold an open tryout for interested participants ahead of the Women's Afro-Basket Championship has come as a shocking surprise to players of the D Tigers of Nigeria. Now, the reaction is coming after players allegedly discovered the tryouts have been announced without any prior notice to former players. Now, amidst this disappointment, one of the players conveyed her feelings to the basketball journalist Kenny Bamidele with a poignant remark, simply saying, quote, "No words." Now, a number of players could not fathom why this was coming at this point in time, when there is a new coach and when we are expecting a new dispensation in women's basketball for Nigeria. I'm very sure the Federation will give us answers to that. But let's take you to the world of football. Still women matters. The Nigerian women's football team, Super Falcons, are set to step up their preparations for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. The nighttime African champions on Sunday, they departed Abuja for the 15-day training camp in Australia before the World Cup, with their base in Brisbane, which is also a venue for the two group matches that they would have. The World Cup, featuring 32 teams, will be hosted by Australia and New Zealand between July 20 and August 20. Nigeria's opening matches against Olympic champions Canada at Melbourne's Park at the stadium on July 21, 2023. And of course, the lady you see on air right now, Onome Ebi, would be making history, 6th World Cup appearance, and also the first African, both male and female player, to ever accomplish that. While the Nigerian team, the nighttime African champions, are focused on their 15-day training, there is trouble for African champions, as African women's champion, the Banyana of South Africa. Now, a makeshift Banyana side lost 5-0 to Botswana at the Shakane Stadium on Sunday in a day overshadowed by a standoff between South African Football Association SAFA and the 2022 Women's African Cup of Nations champions, the Banyana. Now, the friendly was meant to be a farewell match for Banyana before they depart for the 2023 FIFA World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. But the day will be remembered as one of the saddest days in South African football history for those who love women's football. Now, the match was supposed to be a friendly match between Botswana and South Africa, kicked off an hour late, as head coach Desiree Elise had to go scamping 4 players who were not in the World Cup list, were not in the travelling party to come honor that fixture. Why? Because the selected players for the global showpiece took a stand against the South African Football Association, SAFA, earlier in the day. The bone of contention are the issues surrounding distribution model for the World Cup, as the ladies want the guaranteed money announced by FIFA recently to be added to their own contract. Now, there was a lot of pandemonium. A lot of people came out to speak for the girls because SAFA President Danny Jordan had to tell the girls, go home, we do not need you anymore. But let's listen to what is the bone of contention.
Yeah, it's not true, it's a lie.
Yeah.
So they were in the bus at 12:30. They were told to be in the bus at 12:30 to go play. They were there. They were there. They were stopped. They received a call from the president saying they must not come. So we are here to support. They were told to go home. Pack your bags and go.
Wow.
No, here's the manager. She's the one who would have conveyed the message. So we are not doing anything. We are not lying. We are telling them. The media must do its work. That's all. It's not our responsibility to tell the media how to do its work.
Oh no, this cannot be happening to the African champions, the Banyana of South Africa. It's just a few days to the start of the World Cup and we are saying this. Oh, not really happening on the continent. But last sport update for you. You will get more on In the Game, 3:30 West African time. To you, Osa and Olive.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Toby Amuson and, of course, her teammates there. Fantastic run, and I like to see her win. We hope, of course, that this continues, in the future.
Yeah, congratulations to her. Thank you so much, Onyinye. I do hope that Banyana can sort out the issues and the controversy that they have going on, and they give them, state the money, include it in their contract as they're demanding.
But I'm very proud of these girls. They are standing for their rights.
I'm proud of them for standing up for what they want and what they deserve. So yes, I hope that they get it. They get what comes to them, and that they come back and receive another hero's welcome like they did some months back. Thank you so much, Onyinye, for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's share with you a quick recap of the conversations we've had this morning on Breakfast Central.
Kenya road crash, the death toll rises as 41 bodies have been identified. And of course, we spoke about accidents across the continent.
And we talked about Edo State residents demanding investigation and prosecution of officers who drove over a man on the ground.
In sports, Toby Amuson, S.A. Brume and Simbine shine in Stockholm, Sweden. But that's not all this morning. We have more coming your way in the second half of Breakfast Central.
Coming up next, we have, of course, the top 3 stories in Nigeria, which we'll be sharing with you.
And Kemi Adetiba teases the upcoming project to kill a monkey.
And we share with you what the newspaper front pages are saying. Stay with us.
Once again, this is Breakfast Headlines on News Central Television with me, Blessings Musugu. And let's start off in East Africa, where leaders allied to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party have threatened to impeach President William Ruto. The leaders have launched sustained attacks against the president and his administration, saying that they cannot solve the country's problems and have failed to address the needs of the common ordinary citizen. Saboti MP Caleb Amisi explained that it is very easy to remove Ruto from office because he narrowly won the elections and people who voted for him have frowned upon his leadership. Staying in Kenya, Rongai Member of Parliament Paul Cheba has raised concerns over Azimio leader Raila Odinga's upcoming Saba Saba rally scheduled for July 7th, claiming it is an early start to the 2027 campaigns. Now, speaking to the local media on Sunday, Cheba expressed his concerns about the rally, noting that it might plunge the country into violence and should be stopped. Some more stories. The African Union and United Nations envoys in Somalia have applauded Burundi peacekeepers for their sterling stabilization efforts in Somalia. Mohamed El Amin Souf, the special representative of the chairperson of the AU Commission for Somalia and the head of the AU Transition Mission in Somalia, the ATMIS, and Anita Kihibeho, the UN Secretary General's Deputy Special Representative for United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia, have mentioned Burundi's key contributions to peace and stability in Africa, especially in Somalia and in Central Africa. Now, South Africa's Zulu king, Misuzulu Zulu, the head of the country's most influential traditional monarchy, has undergone medical examinations following the sudden death of a close advisor. Now, this comes amid suspicions that he was poisoned. A spokesman, Prince Africa Zulu, told journalists that the king, who was visiting neighboring Eswatini, underwent precautionary and thorough medical exams in the context of COVID and after the sudden death of his close advisor, Douglas Daba. Now to West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu is back in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, after spending a few days in Lagos for the Salah holidays. Before he departed to the presidential wing of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, Tinubu, in the company of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, took the salute of the Nigerian Army Parade, who mounted a guard of honor. During his 5-day stay in Lagos, the president paid a courtesy visit to the paramount rulers of Ijebu, Egba, and Iko. Let's also tell you that Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has debunked a report by the European Union's Electoral Observer Mission on the 2023 general elections, describing it as a product of a poorly done desk job relied heavily on few persons. The president, through its special advisor to the president in or on special duties, communications and strategy, Dele Alake, says he has many reasons to believe the jaundiced report, based on the views of fewer than 50 observers, was to merely sustain the same premature denunciatory stance. Still in Edo State, where residents have called for the investigation and probe of some police seen in a viral video running over a handcuffed suspect with their vehicle. The incident, which happened in the Ekpoma area of the state, has generated nationwide condemnation by citizens, despite the police saying that the personnel involved have been arrested. Some residents in the state, while commending Nigeria's Inspector General of Police for the swift reaction to the incident, however, urged the police to ensure that the victim gets justice.
It's injustice now because police brutality in this town. So in some community, nobody does that. You understand? So you don't mean because you have police gun, you are with a police uniform, you can be oppressing civilians. It's bad. In Western world, developed country, things are not done in that way. You understand? You are under arrest. You take the person to station. But in Nigeria here, in town here, Buma here, some police will come to your house. You are under arrest. Maybe you want to follow them in a very peaceful way. They will still be beating you, be slapping that person. It's bad. So we are pleasing the government. They should come and interfere in this matter.
It's a good one for the IGO Inspector General of Police. Since he came out it's a good start for him to have intervened speedily in issues that happened. And I believe since it is something that persons are interested in, it should be done properly. What we are expecting is for the government to do the needful, not what they are publishing on social media. let us see here that justice has prevailed.
The CP condemned their actions and described it as barbaric, inhuman, and unprofessional. He therefore called on the good people of Edo State, the general public, to remain calm and go about their businesses. As we speak, they've been identified, they've been arrested and brought to State Police Headquarters, Benin, where they are undergoing investigation in the State Criminal Investigation Department.
We have for you on the news at this hour, Olive and Oselge. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And of course, interesting turn of events with the EU's report there, which we spoke about earlier, and seeing, of course, the reaction from the Nigerian government, which of course is expected. But, I think that a lot of people, will, I think agree with the EU. And there's, maybe more than a few people that, of course, witnessed the way that elections were carried out. And of course, some of the things that they mentioned also, which include the failure to prosecute anybody who, of course, failed to play their role, properly in the electoral process, and also failure to transmit results to the electoral portal and some of all those things. They are not things to argue, so I'm not even sure what the government...
Yeah, well, I was going to say that I think the federal government is just trying to debunk something that is already conspicuous. I mean, what is the EU saying? That there were certain ambiguities in the election reports, there was no transparency, and these are things that we already know. So I don't know why the debunking is happening.
Nobody likes to be criticized, first of all, and Bayo Onaniga thinks that the EU Observer Mission doesn't have enough people to sort of regulate, right?
If that ever mattered.
Well, we'll come back to talk more about that. Thank you so much, Blessings, for joining us.
Thank you too.
Today marks an important day in the history of African politics. On this day, the 3rd of July 2013, the Egyptian coup d'etat took place, with the Egyptian Army Chief General leading a coalition to remove the democratically elected president of Egypt from power and, of course, suspended him. All right, that's all that we can take this morning. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be looking through the newspaper front pages.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists on the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
No, go read down.
Kuna kallon News Central TV.
All right, we start on the Guardian newspapers this morning. Share with you the major stories we can find here. It says pump price hike, households consider solar alternatives amid high onboarding costs. Yeah, but of course, if you look across, at the price for setting up solar energy in your homes now, it's not even affordable for the average Nigerian household.
For the middle class.
Is there still a middle class?
I don't even know.
There's no middle class.
There's no middle class anymore.
Nothing like
I feel incredibly terrible that a friend of mine who was relocating out of the country, I had wanted to buy his solar panel. And I remember at the time when I asked, he said he was going to give it to me for a giveaway price of 500,000. And my mother said, it's too much. Guess what? Somebody bought it. And when you check that price now, is over 2 million.
Yeah.
That's that same solar panel. So it was just...
Yeah. So yeah, it's not affordable for the average Nigerian, except they mean solar in a different way. Maybe one battery and can only power one bulb in the house.
Or maybe organizations can now start to partner with their employees, for example, to provide them solar that they can pay over the course of many years. Yeah. I saw that suggestion somewhere and I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, well. Still on The Guardian this morning, AFDB okays $115 million loan for Abia to rehabilitate roads, maintain erosion and solid waste. More borrowing, that's what it means. Published spending of 400 billion naira fuel subsidy savings, Serap task Tinubu. And of course, I think it's once again, just to clarify, I think we always need to refer to economic analysts and the likes to clarify when they say that they saved money. I think I said it before, that it's not like there was money waiting in some wardrobe to give out to these guys. We for a long time we're borrowing. So it maybe is saying that, we didn't have to borrow to pay,
exactly.
For subsidies or anything like that. The money's not just hanging somewhere under someone's chair. PDP NWC meets senators today over minority leadership, alleged APC interference. And also presidency rejects jaundiced EU conclusion on 2023 elections.
It's jaundiced for me.
Imperative of UTME fees, result validity review. And also Lagos building plan permit rates up by 100% amid worsening housing crisis. These are the stories on The Guardian this morning. Still here in Nigeria, let's go to the Daily Sun newspapers.
All right, the front page of the Daily Sun, we start from the top. It says, IPAC laments growing insecurity in Anambra, berates Soludo. The big stories here says, presidential election, Tinubu, APC, INEC fight back at tribunal today. Open defense on Obi, Labour Party, Atiku and PDP petitions. Presidency rejects EU report on 2023 poll. Reports proves APC rigged election, according to Atiku's aide. Austerity. Experts task Tinubu to urgently arrest dwindling economy. PDP NWC meets senators over minority leadership. Peace Committee should present post-2023 election report group demands. We also have here, Serap writes Tinubu seeks spending details of 400 billion naira fuel subsidy savings. Senate awaits Tinubu's ministerial list. Adamu's absence stalls APC's decision on National Assembly principal officers' positions. I'm not under pressure on choice of commissioners, says Oborowori. I don't know, it's always a mouthful for me. Well, that's all that we can take this morning on the front page of the Daily Sun and all that we can take on the front page of the newspapers. If you'd like to engage with us, please remember our social media platforms at News Central TV across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We'll love to connect with you. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we have a very important segment to start off your week. This is Good News Nigeria.
Take it from me, the mind-blowing way to do things is the Glow LTE advanced way. When you stream, it's like you're in the drama itself. You reach where others can't. Coffee! Doing business running Wall Street from your street. And when you play,
I did beat the guy. We'll see about that.
It's like traveling the world without moving an inch.
Is that Toby in your room?
You can download in the blink of an eye in 4K. Go. And when you go for your dreams, it's like running with the strength of 3 nations behind you.
Glow LTE Advanced, the power of 3 data networks in one. Get a Glow SIM or dial *301#.
News Central ní ẹ̀ ń wò.
All right, thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central, here on News Central, and we are indeed bringing to you one of the favorite segments here known as This is Good News. I'm Joe Hansen, and last week we did talk about what one of the NGOs are indeed doing. Unfortunately, we couldn't get you that interview due to some technical issues, but today we can rightly say that we do have the guest who's joining us here live this morning. Education, they say, is the best legacy that can be given to any child, but Nigeria is currently faced with an alarming increase in the number of out-of children wandering on the streets, which is making this legacy staggering. Now, according to a publication by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, we did tell you earlier on, and we're telling you again, that 60% of about 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria are girls, and globally there are 118.5 million girls out of school. As we speak, Nigeria is currently ranked third highest number of children deprived of education, according to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO 2020 model estimates. Now, with the current global recession and the alarming number of out-of children in Nigeria, Ove Brume Foundation took it upon itself to help the less privileged children get quality education and empowerment. I'm being joined by Nana Kalu, alumni and former head of programs of a Brume Foundation. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's go straight into it. First of all, let's talk about what you are doing. We did mention last week, and like we rightly said, due to some technicalities, we didn't really get the clarity on what Ove Brume does in helping children who are not in school. Would you like to expatiate on that?
Yes, so a lot of children are currently disenfranchised. They have little or no access to quality education, primarily because, from their background, they might not have the means to afford it. And so for NGOs like the Ove Brume Foundation, there's always an interesting conversation to talk about how we can offset that gap that exists, how we can try to bridge it and provide the necessary support for young children to access quality education. So that's what we're currently doing. As the former head of programs, I was tasked with primarily ensuring that there's a structure in place so that people who are out of school, people who are on the streets can have access to the scholarship called Project No Excuse. The idea is that no child should have any excuse to not get quality education.
No child should have any excuse of not having quality education. But let's also look at the fact that there's some challenges that you may face in trying to help these underprivileged children get quality education. What are some of these challenges?
Well, a few challenges. One is the access to funds, because to ensure that you offset this gap, it's always important to have a good repository of funds so that you can always ensure that there is a continuity in assisting this young people. So one of the challenges is ensuring that we get a large pool of sponsors that can, put in money and say, let's help young people get off the street. So we try to increase the pool. We try to make sure that we reach a lot of private stakeholders to ensure that, we get the funds we need. Secondly is sometimes when we streamline these people from the streets, they come in and then at the end of the day, they want to go back to the streets. They don't want to get education. So what we usually do is that we put them through an interesting rehabilitation program, ensure that we mentor them before they get access to that scholarship.
We also know that NGOs are not partisan with government, but as an NGO specialist that you are, how do you see the approval of student loans by Nigeria's, the new president and the likes? And most importantly, is it a welcome development for NGOs, especially? Will it make your job easier?
Absolutely. I think it's an interesting development. However, I think that it's too early to call the shots to say how much this will impact the educational sector, primarily because of the sustainability impact of that bill. So it will be interesting to see how it is implemented because a lot of young people who have gone to school and are out of school have little or no access to jobs. So it's interesting to see how we bridge that gap. However, I can say that if young people are supported, giving loans to go to school, then that automatically means that you have less people out of the streets to access quality education.
All right, let's go to the major one. How do you get funds to actually help these students?
Well, we have like a two-way structure which we use to raise funds. First is that we try to identify companies and organizations that have the same corporate social responsibility with what we do. So companies who are interested in education, companies who are interested in ensuring that young people can get access to quality education. When we identify them, we pitch to them and send them an interesting proposal that lets them understand how their funds will be utilized properly, but also how they can join the train of impacting the next generation of change makers. So when we do that, we usually get feedback because first they identify with the mission, which is ensuring quality education, and secondly, they want to impact change. And then the second one is most times we try to ensure that we have an open communication so that people can reach us. And that has been really very helpful as we use like online platforms that ensure that people can always donate to us when they identify with our story. So we're also pretty focused on the brand story, ensuring that people understand what the story of young people is out there.
All right, that's very interesting. But let's quickly wrap things up with this final question. NGOs providing funds for these individuals, taking them off the streets. Would you rightly say it has been successful, and what's the way forward, especially from now?
Thank you for that very good question. So I think we've gotten a major level of success. However, it's alarming that there are still lots of young people on the street. So the work is still there, it exists. And so that's why NGOs do not exist in isolation. Most of our programs is we ensure that we do some level of partnership because we think that the collective effort most times ensures the best results. And going into the future, more NGOs are going to come up because now you're seeing a huge influx in the NGO market. More international NGOs are coming to Nigeria because they've identified that there's a real need to solve. So it will be interesting to see in the next few years how the NGO sector is and how they improve the social ecosystem of the country.
Well, this is truly good news. Thank you so much, Nana Kalu, for joining us. We truly appreciate the work you are doing with the NGO and, of course, the many more NGOs that you'll be either working for, consulting for. And hopefully we do well to get the children off the streets. The numbers are quite alarming, and we hope that this will change subsequently.
Thank you so much.
All right. So there you have it. That's good news that we have for you on a Monday morning. Like we say, every Monday morning, we try to ensure that you get a piece of good news. A dose wouldn't hurt at all. If you've got any good news, any corporate organization, individuals, people, persons that are doing remarkable things, helping the society, humanity, or better still, looking to make a change, especially with the narratives, feel free to send an email to us, or better still, you can reach us on our social media platforms. You have the social media handle there on the screen, and we look forward to invite you so you can come on board and tell us the wonderful things that you are doing. It's back to Olive and Osaugie. I hope I got that name right this time. Yes, you did. And of course, a very interesting thing that the foundation is doing. Thanks a lot for sharing with us. This is good news. Great way to start up the Monday morning. And we'll see you again, Joe.
All right, then. Thank you.
All right. As we begin the new week, let us quickly bring you the top 3 stories from Nigeria. Here are 3 stories you should know in Nigeria. We're joined virtually from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, by Ezekiel Nyaito, who doubles as a political and public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll have you please unmute your mic. We don't seem to be able to hear you. And whilst that is going on, over the weekend...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and what a privilege to be with you this morning.
It's always great to have you. Over the weekend, the media director of the now defunct All Progressives Congress presidential campaign, that's Bayo Onanuga, has challenged musician and social engineer Charlie Boy for allegedly inciting Nigerian youths. Now, this was something that became viral over the weekend. Charlie Boy, or popularly known as Charlie Boy, of course, is Charles Oputa. He's known by his stage name Charlie Boy. And over the weekend, he highlighted in his tweets the ongoing riots in France over the killing of a teenager by a police officer. The victim was shot and killed by a police officer during a traffic stop in Nanterre, a French town, on June 27th, with the development having sparked off widespread unrest across major cities in the country. with many people hitting the streets to protest the teenager's death.
Charlie Boy took to social media to urge Nigerian youths to take a cue from the France riots and fight the system, letting them down. Of course, you can see in his tweet, we're going to put it on screen in a bit. Yes, that is, okay, well, Bayo Onanuga's response, to the tweet by Charlie Boy describing the musician's post as highly responsible and urged security operatives in the country to call him to order immediately. But in a follow-up comment to his post, Charlie Boy, who's age 73, said he didn't incite the youths as assumed. We're going to share his tweet also. Very interesting. Then, Mr. Nyaitok, at least I'm sure that you must have seen both sides of the story and what played out. But I want to get your thoughts on the call for security agencies to, caution Charlie Boy. Do you agree with Bayo Onanuga?
The first thing is that Charlie Boy is somebody that I have known over the years. Personally, I have a one-on-one relationship with him. I know that Charlie Boy is at 73, what he started as a very young person is somebody who has desired a good country, a great country, and to a great extent, he feels let down and almost frustrated. I use that in a positive sense. And he's just wondering what else could be done. I think that to an extent, his tweet has been taken a little bit out of context. He's always said enough is enough. He's always said, take your destiny in your own hands. It's always said, stop being complacent. And within that context, he says, look, a time comes when you've got to say enough is enough, that this impunity is getting out of hand. And to that extent, I think that his expression could have been better worded, but the underlying fundamentals are things that we can all relate to. And I think that underlying fundamental started expressing itself at the EndSARS, and I think it moved into the obedient movement to a great extent. And I think the time has come when the authorities should not just look at the language, they should look at the spirit of the language. They should see that there's something happening with the young people, and all that is needed is a little to ignite. And I believe that Charlie Boy meant well. I believe that his words could have been better worded. And I believe that Onanuga should, if he means well, see beyond the words and look into the spirit of the communication and know that these young people that we take for granted, a day might come that they are really out of control.
Mr. Nyaitok, let's talk about young people and how they've reacted to Mr. Bayo Onanuga's call. There was a video by Asari Dokubo where he was holding a rifle and he made certain threats. And there was also, we have the video here on camera where he made certain threats. I don't know if we have the audio so we can play it out.
I don't know. Elijah has run away. You don't see me? I don't run. Hey, leave me alone. You don't see me? I don't run. On my head, no correct.
Now, that's one clip of Asari Dokubo, and many people have referred to this as a video that should have made him be called in for investigation. There was also the situation, Mr. Nyaitok, of MC Oluomo and the statements made during the 2023 general elections. There were people who called for his arrest and his investigation, and none of such was being done. There was also another isolated incident. I'm trying to remember a number of these. All right, yes, Nasir El-Rufai and the statements that went viral. Now, what young people are saying is that in all of these incidences, we did not hear Bayo Onanuga calling for any of their arrest or their detention or their investigation. So would you maybe see that or say that there is a similarity between what Charlie Boy might have inferred, right? Or would you say that Bayo Onanuga is also slacking in not being able to have called out these people and is now speaking up to ask for Charlie Boy to be called to order?
I think there's still one statement that you've left out. Take it, grab it, run with it. You know, these are different expressions. If you look at MC Oluomo, he does have his public. If you look at Asari Dokubo, he does have his public. If you look at Charlie Boy, each of them have their constituencies and who they appeal to. And I think that we're not attacking the fundamentals. And if we are not careful, that final match might be struck by a wrong person that activates a wrong public that will have no one listening to anyone. And that's where anarchy will become the order of the day. We may say, God forbid, as much as we want, but there's a saying in my language that Abasiye kan ipanampa. What that means is that God forbid, no, they stop death. You understand me? What stops death is not just saying God forbid, but you doing the things you should do to avoid that. So coming back to the issues at stake, we are running a system where the blood is running hot in the veins of the young people. I happen to be a worker predominantly within the young people. I'm called the national headmaster. I have related with the youth all my life, so to speak. And I'm really concerned about what is happening to the young people, about the distress that they are going through, about all that is happening to them, and we seem to be oblivious. For me, the statement of Mr. Charlie Boy is one that one should try to explore the fundamentals. Is he just a troublesome person trying to cause another trouble? Or is telling, let me say this, or is telling the young people, look, these guys are not listening to you. The time has come for you to take your destiny in your own hands. Yeah. There are some people in France that said they can't take it anymore. And look at what they did. Let me tell you, before we go that route or that route, let us have this in a more organized manner. Young people, wake up. I think that was the spirit of his communication. I'm not saying go burn.
Just so that we're clear, you know, the tweet from Charlie Boy, Area Father, that's his handle. Yeah. The tweet, end of the tweet that, of course, you know, has been referred to, really said, I'm waiting on the exceptional Nigerian youths to reject a system that let them down on a destiny day on a hand. Of course, he also sort of talks about, the bottom tweet is where he was clarifying. But, you know, I want us to talk about the main tweet that was made. And that was before it was edited. Before it was edited, what the tweet said is, I'm waiting on exceptional Nigerian youths to bring down a criminal enterprise. And, you know, people can argue well enough that that isn't necessarily asking for protesting or rioting or destruction.
Let me ask you a question. Could there be a more patriotic statement than that?
I mean, so I think the challenge here is.
Please. I want us to focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Waiting for the exceptional Nigerian youths to bring down a criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
Between you and I, could any statement be more patriotic than that? Do we not all desire in this country that criminal enterprise should be brought down? What we need to do is to say, I agree with you. Now, this is the way we should do it so that it does not go the way of France where we get destruction.
Yeah, I agree.
So that we do not lose one life. I think that we should take that statement and contextualize it.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to clarify, you know, for those who hadn't seen the original tweet, which was then edited to make it look better, and then he then clarified what he meant. But let's move on to, you know, the second top story for also here in Nigeria. There, of course, are reports that the 5 aggrieved People's Democratic Party leaders under the aegis of the G5 may dump the party ahead of the 2027 general elections. Of course, you know, some people may argue that it's too early to be talking about this is Nigeria. Now, of course, this is as a result of the move by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, George Akume, to woo one of them into the governing All Progressives Congress. The G5, of course, is made up of the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, former governors Nyesom Wike, Okezie-Ikpeazu of Abia State, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State, Samuel Ortom of Benue State, of course, 5 of them respectively.
Recall that the PDP chieftains opposed the continued stay of Senator Iyorchia Ayu as the PDP national chairman, following the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as the PDP presidential candidate for the 2023 election. Now, what and how will this move end up? These are some of the angles we want to look at. You know, if this is really true, I want to ask what your thoughts are. Do you think that this is maybe true? And if yes, how do you think this will end up?
Okay. You see, in politics, we do micro analysis of macro situations. But a good politician does what I call the 2010 plan. He looks at the macro and brings it down to the micro. Let me tell you 1, 2, 3 things that we have not looked at in as where we are today. Number one is that the election of 2023 is not done and dusted. We must understand that 2023 is not done and dusted. There is the tribunal. And the issues at the tribunal are extremely fundamental. I'll just give you one issue. If the Supreme Court says that 2/3 and FCT means if JAMB says for you to get admission, you must get 5 credits and English. If you like, get 20 credits. If you not get English, you know you can't come in. If they now come and put that as the interpretation of the law, we all know what a dire consequence that means. It means that the election has to be probably repeated. If not, that somebody else could be sworn in. So 2023 is not done and dusted. And the current Electoral Act, to the best of my knowledge, tries to avoid, election by the Supreme Court. So where there is such a lacuna, the likelihood is to have a rerun.
Mr. Nyaitok, I want to ask, is the conversation on the G5 moving to the APC, is that shocking? Is that surprising in any way? Is, the likelihood of Nyesom Wike and the rest moving to the APC shocking news to anybody?
We are having a micro discussion which makes sense within a macro context. The macro context is that there is a possibility of the current election being annulled. And if that is the case, they are already preparing without letting you know for a possible rerun. So within that context, there are groups that are aligning and realigning, and you cannot sit down here and say, oh, it's possible, it's not possible. It has to do with the permutations and combinations. And that is what I was trying to establish. But you see, we want to get quick answers to things, and those things don't work like that unless you get a context within which is being done. But we don't have all the time in the world. But I want to say that there are 2 types of politicians. There are those that, number one, they are entrepreneurs. They look for where their nest will be feathered, nothing more than that. And they are nationalists who are looking for what is the better good of the country on the long run. So these 5 people belong. For those that their personal interest is what is driving them, they will look for the side that will hold the ace. And if we had a little bit more time, I would have given you a bigger perspective, but we don't have that time. But the important thing is that politicians are looking at the permutations of pre-Supreme Court and post-Supreme Court. And post-Supreme Court means that they've come to a finality, and this is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and they are looking at 4 years ahead. Within that context, if they think that there's a good chance of this election being annulled, and they look at a possibility of Labour Party having any working relationship with PDP, and meaning that one of them will come to power and APC remove, they'll go back to PDP. Or they will align and just be playing with APC. But if they know that they can say for sure that APC is going to remain in power, and then they are thinking of 4 years of their lives, what are they going to do? And likelihood is that they will pander to the whims and caprices, the wishes, expectations of APC. So now it's not fluid. Each of them is playing a game and dancing and romancing with the two sides. And none of them will take a decision until that time they have an idea of where the Supreme Court is going as a final decision.
All right.
All right. Since we're talking about the elections and what the permutations might be as regards, our last story. Let's move on to our final story. And it's talking of the federal government rejecting the European Union's report on the 2023 general elections. And they described the conclusions of the EU Electoral Observer Mission as jaundiced. The special advisor to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Dele Alake, said, and I quote, "We urge the EU and other foreign interests to be objective in all their assessments of the internal affairs of our country and to allow Nigeria breathe." The opposition parties, PDP and Labour Party, have kicked following the statements made by the APC. The opposition parties criticized the presidency for rejecting the EU final report on the 25th of February presidential election. So I'd like us to also quickly look at some of the suggestions and the recommendations they have made. Mr. Nyaitok, they said, one, we need to remove ambiguities in the law. We need to establish a publicly accountable selection process for INEC. 3, we need to ensure real-time publication of and access to election results. 4, we need to provide greater protection for media practitioners. 5, we need to address discrimination against women in political life. And finally, 6, we need to have a look at the impunity regarding electoral offenses. I'd like to first of all find out if you've been able to look through the EU EOM and to find out what your thoughts are on this report.
Yes, I have. And the last one is my starting point, which is impunity. I'm in the court at the appeal as we speak, and there's just one thing that is really in my mind against any other thing: the processes and the impunity. You can't have an electoral process where you just do anything you want, however you want. You can't do that. I'm looking forward to having a minimum of 300 people jailed in Akwa Ibom State, empirically. Because you can't just keep, this impunity is getting out of hand. Oh, just let it slide. Oh, don't worry. No, I'm worrying, okay? So I've looked at that and it's very important. The processes, the interrogation, I don't know, I just want to jump here and there because of time. Number one, I want to say that, did you realize that in the past few days, the EU was hailing Mr. President for the bold steps he has taken with respect to fuel subsidy? I can't remember the poor people in this country telling the EU, allow us breathe. But I can remember the president and his people saying, yes, thank you, you're welcome, that's great. Now saying EU, saying, oh, this one you did is not too good. What is the response? Let us breathe. You are interfering. What's your business? Why are you talking? So they are not being consistent. And for a government, if I were in their position, I would have said, thank you for the issues you have raised. This was not a whatever that we conducted. We do have the same challenge in some states that we lost and we would have won. So there is need for us to interrogate this process. Thank you. But you may not be very factual because the number of people that you have did not have the sort of spread. But the fact is that these fundamentals are things we want to ensure that going forward, they do not, you would have just killed that report there. But now, and secondly, they're about to start their defense in the tribunal. So each report, each side tries to see to what extent. Look, I want to tell our president and his minders, you did not conduct the elections. Don't take responsibility for what you did not instigate or were not a party to. Because Nigerians, 90% of Nigerians know that the elections were flawed. Right. So coming to tell us that, oh, it was perfect is just losing us before you even start. That's not good enough. Then other details of the report we can't go into, but I went through it and I know that the recommendations, the 6 recommendations they made are really, really, really things that every responsible government should take particular notice of. INEC is ANECO. And they need to let
Thank you very much. Hopefully, we get more than those 300 people, questioned, across the country. maybe jailed if they did, jeopardize the process. Thanks very much for your time. We will be speaking with you again.
There must be consequences. Thank you. God bless
you. Stay with us this morning. We, of course, have a little bit more to come this morning on Breakfast Central. Let's quickly share with you what's still to come.
Kenyan comedian Eric Omondi raises money on the streets is one of our stories we take later this morning.
And we'll share with you what our top story of the day is this Monday morning.
Now, so much happened in the entertainment scene over the weekend, but let's begin in West Africa, where Nigerian heavyweight filmmaker Kemi Adetiba has once again teased her upcoming film, To Kill a Monkey. Now, the multi-award-winning filmmaker made a lengthy post on Instagram announcing that the highly anticipated film would be supported by streaming giant Netflix. Now, this is what one of her parts of the post said. It says, "We've been since KOB 2, and that's pushing 3 years now. We've enjoyed how the industry has grown since then, but now I'm ready to get back in the ring. It's back-to-back season, baby." Now, following the record-breaking success of the King of Boys series, fans have long anticipated another hit film. Now, Kemi, in her post, thanked fans for the continued support and revealed, and I quote, "We've cooked up some great stories and we can't wait to tell them to you visually." Now, there are barely any details about the upcoming film, but Kemi revealed that To Kill a Monkey is a crazy story that God puts in her head out of nowhere the morning of her engagement. She says, "And I can't wait for you guys to see it. If you've ever trusted me before, triple that trust, because Tam is coming," all right? That's a short form for Kemi on the post, saying, "Jump in here and tell them something." Now, it's unclear in what capacity the veteran actor will be contributing on the project, but fans have flooded the post with congratulatory and positive comments anticipating the project. She's called it TCAM, and I guess just as we called King of Boys KOB, this one's going to be called TCAM, and it's going to be on the streaming platform Netflix. So we'll have to wait, of course, for more details, like when it's going to come out, who the actors will be in it, and what the plot of the film would be. But we also know that if it's Kemi Adetiba, it will definitely be a hit. Still in Nollywood, veteran actress Joke Silva has opened up about her longtime marriage with actor Olu Jacobs and his battle with dementia. Now, the multi-award-winning actress, in a recent interview with fellow actress and TV host Nancy Sime, revealed the impact their fight with dementia has had in their marriage. Let's watch this.
Well, I have to be very honest, it hasn't been easy. In the early years when we first started, we didn't even realize it had started. We just were like, why are you behaving like this? Well, what's happening to you? You know, things like that. But when it then, kind of the deteriorations became a bit more rapid. Oh, my darling, you didn't want to see me at that time. I was bawling. I always used to bawl my eyes out, And then, there now came a point of acceptance that this is it. This is the reality. It is what it is. And it's almost like the person you married 80% of the time is no longer there. It's another, but the thing is this, when he was there, he was an amazing man. And because he was an incredible, my husband is an incredible father. The husband I knew is no more there, but this man that is here is somebody that I still love.
That was definitely an emotional one for most people. According to her, Jacobs was not only her best friend, but also her whole life. Although their relationship has undergone substantial adjustment as a result of this illness. It's fair to say the two have been couple goals to so many fans over the many years. They've been married for 37 years and have known each other for 42 overall, including 5 years of dating before getting married. They still remain goals to a lot of us. Let's head to East Africa, where Kenyan comedian Eric Omondi has taken to the streets to solicit for funds. The controversial star, who claimed that he managed to collect around 340,000 Tanzanian shillings, begging on the streets of London, is now believed to have raised at least another 140,000 shillings during his recent show in Tanzania. Now, the funny man used his stage to beg the audience to donate money to him, stating that Kenya is in a bad state due to the high cost of living. The 33-year-old star revealed that the purpose of his abrupt fundraising was to help a section of needy Kenyans from the country's current unfavorable living conditions. Now, although his fundraising attempt on the streets of London were interrupted by police, the award-winning comedian announced plans to start a worldwide tour dubbed Waye Tour to try and fundraise money for struggling Kenyans. Now, although Eric had visited the UK to prove a point to C.S. Moses' career that he can afford a luxurious life, it's good to see that he's now taking a new direction with this. We can't help but imagine what Kenyans must be going through, but he's a comedian. If he says he's fighting for the people of Kenya, then we hope he's doing that. That's how much we can take, but I do want to say that we're anticipating the Grammys. The nominations list will drop way later in November. But definitely that's something that a lot of people are talking about, considering the fact that there are 3 more categories, especially one that celebrates Afrobeats and several, of course, genres in Africa.
Yep. Of course, the Olu Jacobs and Drika Silva story, definitely is the one that catches my attention. And I want to thank, God for them, for old age, for love, even in old age,
Right.
because it's a thing that a lot of people may never experience. And, a lot of people didn't grow up in homes that have that. That's the kind of home that I grew up.
Right.
My parents have been married for 45 years now, 43 or 44, 45 years, I don't remember. And they still, are pretty much the same way they've been since, birth. Unfortunately, old age does come with its own challenges, which Olu Jacobs currently dealing with. But I just want to wish both of them well. I don't think there's any need to analyze anything.
Yeah, shout out to Professor and Mrs. Ogbonwa for being fantastic couple goals as well and raising a good man. So we hope that we have more parents like this, and people should stop looking to celebrities that their marriages aren't working. They are the ones that their marriages are working. So I wish them all the best. Thank you so much, Sam Dandy, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's share with you what's happening later today on News Central. 12 p.m. West African time, it's News Central now.
5 p.m. West African time, we're bringing you The Conversation.
And at 7 p.m. West African time, we have Politics HQ. Join us for all these programs. Thank you for joining us on a brand new edition of Breakfast Central, the first one in the month of July. We're excited to have you as we count down to all the exciting moments that July has for us. Please engage with us on all social media platforms as well. I'm Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbonwa. And I'll just quickly say that, the Nigerian society and the Nigerian criminal justice system, the Nigerian conversations will never be honest enough if we would ignore MC Oluomo and ignore Asari Dokubo and ignore every other person who has incited violence or incited some level of aggression towards different tribe or different group of people, and then focus on the one that focus on Charlie Boy. That's a very unhealthy society. But we'll be back here again tomorrow morning. Thanks for joining us, and see you tomorrow.
A high-performance car is like a high-performance athlete.